Hello everyone, I'm going to make a video briefly speaking about the languages of Spain. Of course, if I wanted to be more exhaustive, I would, if I really wanted to talk about the languages of Spain in detail, I would have to make a video about the languages of the Iberian Peninsula in general, including Portuguese, because historically and linguistically, Portuguese has very close ties to Galician and to almost nearly all the other languages in the Iberian Peninsula. But for now, I'll make a video about the languages of Spain, and maybe later I'll talk about Portuguese and its relation to the rest of them, to the rest of the languages of the Iberian Peninsula. So let me, I should note that I by no means am an expert in this subject, and I can only claim to speak Spanish. I haven't really studied any of these other languages in any detail. I have studied the history of the languages of the Iberian Peninsula briefly for a few months during the second semester of last year at the university, so I know a thing or two about the subject matter, but I am not an expert. So let's go ahead, and of course it'll be handy to show you guys a little map here. This is from Wikipedia, which of course, as you guys know, is by no means to be taken literally, but it's a nice resource. And this map right here, it's a very simplified map, but it's pretty handy to show you more or less what's going on. Believe it or not, a lot of people still don't know nowadays that Spain is a multilingual country, and I hope that you can learn a thing or two from this video. So let's start naming the languages. The first language in red is of course Spanish. It's of course spoken all over the country, but the areas in red in this map are largely speaking home to monolingual Spanish speakers who probably don't speak any of the other languages of Spain to any degree of proficiency. Of course, we're generalizing, but give or take, that tends to be the case. Spanish is known in Spanish as Español or Castellano. Next up is the second largest language in number of speakers. This is Catalan or Valencian, depending on where you are. In Catalonia it's called Catalan, and in Valencia it's called Valencian. It's spoken all over this region, that's shown in light purple, and in the Balearic Islands as well. It's known in Spanish as Catalan or Valenciano, and in Catalan as Català or Valencia. I hope you'll forgive all my mispronunciations of the languages in their original names, the names that they are given by the speakers of the languages themselves. Next up, Basque. Basque is spoken in this region right here up north. Basque is thought to be the only non-Indo-European language spoken in Western Europe, and the only surviving pre-Indo-European language in Europe, at least in Western Europe. I don't know enough about the history of the Uralic languages like Hungarian, Finnish, Estonian, and their relatives to tell you when those peoples got there, before or after the Indo-European peoples, but at least in Western Europe this is the only surviving pre-Indo-European language, and it has nothing to do with any language in the Indo-European branch. In fact, it's a language isolate. An interesting thing to note is that there have been a few loanwords from Basque into Spanish, most notably the word for left, which is izquierda. Next up, Galician, spoken in this region. Galician is closely related genetically and linguistically to Portuguese spoken in Portugal. Galician is known in Spanish as Gallego and in Galician as Galego. Next up, Aranese. Aranese is spoken in this little tip right there that you see in light green. That's called the Aran Valley. And Aranese is actually a standardized dialect of Occitan, the language of southern France, also known as Provençal. Aranese is known in Spanish as Aranés and also in Aranese as Aranés, although I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. Next up, Asturian. Asturian is spoken in this region in green, up in this region. It's known in Spanish as Asturiano and in Asturian as Asturiano or Bable. By the way, I forgot to name the names for Basque. Basque is known in Spanish as Vasco, Vascuense, and a bunch of other names, and in Basque as Euskara. We've talked about Asturian. Next up is Aragonese. Aragonese is spoken in this region. It's known in Spanish as Aragonés and in Aragonese also as Aragonés. Probably butchering that pronunciation too. Leonese, noted in a darker shade of yellow in this area and in a little bit right there. Leonese is known in Spanish as Leonés and in Leonese as Lengua Leonesa. It's related to the Asturian language genetically and linguistically. When I say linguistically, I mean it's just similar. It's similar in the way it works. We're almost done. These are the Canarian Islands, close to the western coast of Africa. They mostly speak Spanish there. This bit of green right here is Extremaduran, known in Spanish as Extremeño and in Extremaduran as Extremeño. And last but not the least is the language. You can barely see this on the map, but there is a small brownish tip right there. There's a couple of valleys there with a few towns very, very close to the border with Portugal, in which they speak Fala, known as in Spanish as Fala, and in Fala as Fala, unless I'm getting the stress wrong, in which case it's probably more like Fala. Either way, okay, what is the official status of these languages? Spanish, Catalan, Basque, Galician, and Aranese are official in Spain. Asturian and Leonese are recognized by the Spanish government as languages of Spain. Aragonese, Extremaduran, and Fala are not recognized officially by either local or countrywide governments, and actually, as I've heard it, Aragonese is currently lobbying. The Aragonese speaking community is currently lobbying for the language to be recognized by the government, which would give it certain protections under the law. Okay, that's about it. I don't know how long I've been talking for, but I better stop before I run out of time here. This has been a very brief rundown of the languages of Spain. I hope to talk about them in more detail in the future, and maybe also talk a little bit about Portuguese, which is closely related to all these languages of the Iberian Peninsula. It's been It's been lovely talking about this. It's a very interesting subject for me, and I hope you will have found it interesting too. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.